Good afternoon, everyone. Now it's time for our strategic dialogue on a topic that's shaping the future of responsible business: ESG beyond compliance, driving real impact in business profitability with purpose. In today's evolving landscape, ESG considerations have moved from being mere checkboxes to becoming core drivers of value and impact. This session will uncover how businesses can align profitably with purpose, creating long term value for both shareholders and society. We have honored to have with us two pioneering leaders in this space: Ms. Aditi Balbir, co-founder and CEO of EcoRatings, and Mr. Vivek Mehra, co-founder, CSO and CTO of Onlygood.ai. This inspiring conversation will be led by Mr. Ashish himself, founder of the CSRUniverse. Let's tune in as they discuss how ESG is evolving from a regulatory mandate into a strategic business imperative.
Thank you, Ruchika. So, a warm welcome to Balbir ji, Aditi ji, and Vivek ji. We have been long waiting for this session. Basically, when we talk about, so these are actually the buzzwords: ESG, CSR, then SDGs. People talk more about it and do less. That is what we have experienced while working at the CSRUniverse for last 6 years now. And in some way or the other, uh, discussions are there, but the activities that must happen on ground is somewhere missing. So we just thought keeping this discussion wherein we would like to understand and know insights from you both as to what is there in ESG and how this can go beyond doing business, because every time this since government mandated BRSR reports, so everybody is doing that now. Government mandated CSR, so everybody is doing that now. Now, what is it that business should be doing to move beyond those regulatory compliances and basically doing what is mandated for ESG domain? So first of all, I would like to know a little more. So our audience would like to know a little more about your work first, and then would like to know your thoughts on preliminary thoughts on this particular topic.
Sure. Thank you so much for having me. So we are doing a startup called EcoRatings, which is a generative AI company for sustainability. It covers environment, social, and governance, all three parameters. And the whole idea is that why is sustainability so complicated? Why is ESG, CSR, why are they such complicated topics, right? So when I've been a sustainability professional maybe for now 10 odd years, and 10 years ago it was a very good to have. It was the reason why my startup got funded, because I got impact investors. It was our key differentiating factor at that time, but nothing more. It wasn't really the buzzword back then, right? As I have seen the progress in the last 10 years, suddenly things have become very complicated. People think that there are different solutions for energy, there is different solution for a pharma, there is different things for other sectors. It's sectoral specific, it's geography specific, it's also framework specific, because there are so many frameworks now out there. Today I saw a LinkedIn post which had about 20 frameworks. There are ones we've not even heard names of. So this became very complicated, and in 23, I decided that sustainability is here to stay, because obviously climate change is not going anywhere. And more importantly, it's too complicated for corporate. So I think one of the reasons why you're saying there's not enough work on ground is because it's so complex. People don't know where to start. And when they think about this whole thing about where should we begin from, they start thinking about, oh, we need an ESG expert. देखो ऐसा कुछ term ही नहीं है. There is no such thing as an ESG expert. It's very controversial to say that, I know. But the fact of the matter is that there are different people who have taken up different roles in organizations. Mostly these are operations people. And they have learned sustainability, just like I did in my previous venture. I learned about it. And I did it because it was necessary for the business. And that was the only reason I did it, honestly. And I think a business will do it only because it is necessary for the business. So in my case, when we developed a generative AI solution, it's very new. We're testing it out with corporates. But the idea is to decode sustainability, make it very simple for an individual. We spoke about individual responsibility in the last panel. I thought that was very interesting. How are people going to do that if they don't know enough? And you're not going to start coaching people. You know, this capacity building thing is very, very difficult to do. So it's with generative AI, things have become very simple. You just ask a platform a question and you get an answer. So that was the reason we went into this field, and we felt that generative AI will very quickly make it clear for people, you know, for individuals, for companies, and even for countries. Because ultimately the onus of ESG will lie on the country and not on the other two, you know, parameters. So that's why we started this company, and I feel going forward, it will just become more and more simple. Companies are actually, you'll be very surprised why companies are doing sustainability. BRSR was probably, I'd say, a push factor which was needed, and compliances are required to give you a push factor. But that's really not why people are doing it. And if you talk to people who are doing the BRSR, they're doing a lot more than the BRSR. So they may have started with the BRSR, but they figured out very quickly that everybody's very smart in the company. So they figured out very quickly that they can get other things, they can achieve other things. What can you do? You can, you know, drive up your share prices. You can get a loan, an ESG loan. You can get impact investors, the way I did for my previous startup. You can get more revenue quotas when you're exporting outside. So if you're getting your ratings, etc., you can actually drive up revenues. You can do a lot on cost optimization, because if you're saving electricity, you're obviously saving emissions, but you're also saving cost, right? So these are the real considerations why businesses do it. It's really not driven by the fact that you have to do one report, which is BRSR. But like I said, it's very important to get that push, that initial push.
Wonderful, thank you. Vivek ji, your thoughts, please.
No, thank you, Aditi, for setting the context. I completely agree with the sentiment. So the topic is beyond compliance, right? So before I answer that, let me tell you and introduce what we do. So I lead this company called Onlygood.ai. We began as a technology software company. So my background is technology. I come at sustainability after having spent years doing replantations of trees and looking at economic livelihoods, education for the underprivileged, things like that in a personal capacity. My co-founder Rajiv and I, we realized the big gap there is in so-called sustainable companies, what they are claiming and what the reality is, and how can technology solve for that and also help companies and businesses become greener, sort of do it at scale. So we come at this not as technology experts in terms of energy conservation, water conservation, waste management, etc., but as technologists trying to accelerate companies' business in terms of both top line and bottom line. How we do it is, and the problem we set out to solve was that while companies may be recycling, while they may believe in a circular economy, they may believe in compliance, what are the impediments to actually becoming green? Over the last 15, 20 years, there has been a lot of greenwashing. People have gone to jail. There have been all kinds of standards, as Aditi mentioned. Which framework do you follow? What are the core principles? Everybody sort of creates their own context so that they can get good results. Generally through consulting mechanisms, through Excel-based reporting, where you do a point-in-time check and you say, look, everything looks nice. We are a green company, and then the next day you can start to violate everything. But there is no basis for continuing to have that ESG or sustainable tag, whether it is financial services companies or manufacturing or anything else. So how do you do that? I mean, the secret, of course, is data, as in anything else. It's like going to a doctor without a blood report. What can the doctor treat you for? We don't know how well your body is doing. So we essentially create a blood report for the company in terms of carbon emissions, energy usage, water and waste, so that you actually have a dashboard that you are driving with, as opposed to imagine driving a car without any dashboard. You don't know how fast or slow you're going, and worse, there are multiple different signs on the road that don't tell you if you're doing well or not. So one, you don't know how fast or slow you're going, and second, there's no context or reference. And the people you meet all along the way say, yeah, you're doing a great job, everything is good. So if you're recycling and your recycler is in China, you're spending tons of carbon emissions just to get to China or somewhere far away. You might as well just bury the thing and make it a greener planet just doing that. You're doing less damage. The big challenge in manufacturing is what is called scope 3 carbon emissions, which is indirect, right? So if we're drinking some water here, well, where was this water produced? It's produced in some treatment plant somewhere, it's sourced from some canal somewhere else. By the time it gets here, in a truck or through a pipeline, there is a cost and a carbon emission associated with it. So while I may know the carbon footprint of this glass of water here, what is the downstream and the upstream, once this bottle gets recycled, even if it's glass. Yes, it's better than plastic, but it's still a bottle. It needs to go somewhere. What is the upstream and downstream emission associated with this? That is accountable to me as a consumer, and by extension, a company that uses raw materials and then produces something and then goes out to a distributor, then a consumer. So that entire chain, the 95% of the carbon footprint is hidden in this indirect supply chain. And without data, there is no basis to even estimate what that is. So that is our purpose in life, is to provide the data, first collect and collate it, classify it, provide auditability and veracity for it so that you can truly claim you're green.
Right. So, Mr. Mehra, you are so much into helping companies understand what ESG and what are the different parameters for them, where they need to work upon, right? So, in your sense, what do you see? Where is the challenge for the companies now, especially for the smaller companies, to meet those ESG requirements, which is part of compliance also? And what do you find where Indian companies at present sitting in terms of their understanding of ESG, and wherein they are not relating it to the profit, and they are not, just your thought. Where do they stand now?
So I think the good news is that there is growing awareness, right, in terms of simply the queries we get as a company in terms of client prospects. We see it doubling every month, roughly. So there is tremendous awareness. Last year, if we were having this talk last year, I would not be as optimistic. So it's changing very quickly. And one of the reasons is, of course, the compliance burden that India carries as an emerging and fast developing economy and one of the largest emitters of carbon in the emerging world. And also the fact that Indian manufacturers are also finding themselves in greater participation in global supply chains. So if an EU passes a law like CBAM, or the Carbon Border Adjustment Mechanism, the penalties of which will start hitting on Jan 1st, 2026 for large companies, Indian manufacturers are also penalized while not being in the EU because they're part of that supply chain. So Indian manufacturers are now starting to realize that. Up till now, the sentiment was the government will take care of it through free trade agreements, and we don't have to carry this burden. But now, obviously, no trade agreement has happened. The EU has pushed back the law a little bit for small to medium enterprises in Europe, in the context of the other big law, which is CSRD, the Carbon Disclosure Law, for European companies, given the war and the state of the European economies, but they're not reducing the burden on outside economies like India. So the burden is very much here. Small to medium enterprises are feeling the pinch. The problem with laws like this is, while they're well intended, they also are one size fits all. So while a Tata Motors may have the capability, a small supplier to Tata Motors may not. And that's where technology comes in to democratize the data collection process, so that yes, you can participate and you don't have to hire expensive consultants.
Right. So definitely, Indian companies are still, they are comprehending what are the components of ESG, where to work upon, and how to get compliant ready also, though they are not currently part of those regulatory compliances, but they are trying to understand. But since at EcoRating you have been working closely with these companies, Aditi ji, what is your understanding? What are the challenges that small businesses basically, and what are the difference in challenges that big business and smaller businesses are facing, and where there is obviously the big companies like Tata, Reliance, they have big budgets also, they have big pockets, right? For them, doing an investment brings them that kind of image and publicity and everything, right? That helps them. So while working on ESG, they spend also, and that comes back as a goodwill from the society. Now the small businesses running in small pockets, they are fully focused on generating profits.
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts, and where do you see those challenges with small companies and big companies in terms of doing compliances and meeting those ESG goals beyond their profitability issues?
Yeah. Big companies also struggle, thank God. Otherwise, we won't be in business. But big companies don't struggle with the budget, as you rightly said. They struggle with data. So they have vast geographies, they have so many locations, they are present everywhere, they have different lines of businesses. So their issue is actually aggregating all the data, getting it all together. It's a very messy affair. Even if they have very large teams, the teams are firstly collecting that data, then they're aggregating it, then they're auditing it to figure out whether it's correct or not. It's a very painful exercise, and that is one of the largest challenges in a company. And very frankly, and as he said as well, it's very easy to solve because it is always done through technology. So technology is a great solution for those multi-conglomerate type of companies, large companies. And for them, it's a great investment as well, because they forget about the goodwill, etc. For them, everything gets automated. You need a small team, you don't need very large teams. And at the end of the day, you become very self-reliant. So sustainability will sort of become like the finance function, right? We have Tally, and Tally helps not very much, but think of us as an intelligent version of Tally, which helps you to collate all your data also, get it all together, and then do all the analysis, etc. on top of it. Even the optimization, etc. can be done. So it's much easier to deal with technology. Again, it's an investment which only the large companies can do. Now we go to the small companies. Small companies have an issue of knowledge, then they have an issue of data, and then they also have an issue of cost. So they have all the issues, right? And unfortunately, the market today is flooded with a lot of ESG consultants also, who would say that, oh, I'll get this done for you for $1 lakh, I'll make the report, I'll do the framework. It's becoming a little muddy. Okay, and obviously those guys don't have the large budgets to go for the Ernst & Youngs and all the other guys, right? So there is definitely a need for technology adoption there also, but it is, it's always difficult to figure out an SME-led model, because then you need the volumes, etc. So one good way of going to the SMEs is through either the government or through places like say SIDBI, etc., who are dispersing all these loans to these SMEs, right? These 3 crore SMEs that we have. That's what we are working on, to try and go through the aggregators to the SMEs, but the solution has to reach them. It has to reach them, because if it doesn't reach them, and they are part of the supply chain, unfortunately they have to do it. If they're not doing it today, they'll have to do it tomorrow. So I think that is one of the better ways to go through it. Maybe take the burden of the cost, etc., the implementation either on the government or on players like SIDBI who can fund it. But the ESG has to percolate there. So one of the things that we do as well, we have a dashboard wherein we tell the supplier to just put in all his operational data. He doesn't need to care about sustainability, doesn't need to know what is scope 1, scope 2, scope 3. He just needs to put in his operations data, which he always has, right? An electricity bill, a transport bill, those sort of things. And based on that, the platform can do the calculations themselves. And they get access to a profile, which sort of looks like a Crunchbase profile, which they can then keep as public and can give to all their suppliers. So things like that will help. They're again very costly right now. They have to be implemented at scale.
So, thank you for making us and helping us understand the complications of this ESG compliances and how the data should be compiled and how it should be then taken in creating reports also. But for just generic understanding, right? ESG is a very, very, very complex subject wherein you have environment, you have social, and then you have governance, which probably one is coming from CSR space. First one is coming from your overall responsibility towards environment, and the third one is your internal governance, right? So, do you think that the data which is being reported, obviously we should not doubt, but how
We should doubt.
yeah, so that I should not say. I would just ask for your opinion and thoughts. So the data that is coming from most of the companies towards their ESG compliances, how correct it would be, and means how transparent it is. What is your understanding of it is of these data coming to the reports?
See, energy and social is pretty transparent because it is coming, environment and social is transparent because there are certain, it's maths and it's data points driven, so you can't do too much. Governance is a very, very difficult to track parameter. The only way that we track it right now is through policies. In environment, there is a lot of things that can be covered through technology. You know, you can do your trace sourcing, you can do your satellite imagery analysis. Sitting here without going to that place, I can tell you what's going on there. So it's a little easier in environment. Even in social, if you're doing something, it's kind of apparent that you're doing it. But unfortunately, right now, S and G is governed by the policies that you have made in your organization. So you've made a policy, whether you're doing it or not, कोई नहीं बता सकता आपको, right? So those are much difficult parameters to track, but in terms of environment, you can easily know. There the errors are human-driven errors. So I'll give you just an example. For example, there is a company, a large conglomerate, they have over 1,000 locations. Now they have to get electricity bills from all 1,000 locations. Okay, somewhere there is a meter of an electricity that is of a meter which has an IoT where some data comes. A meter which doesn't have an IoT, where just a photograph of the meter comes. Somebody is recording it manually in a register. Right. Someone is actually getting an electricity bill, and the formats of the electricity bill in our country change state-wise. So when all that data is coming, a human being is checking that data, seeing what are the units of consumption and manually punching it into some system. That's what is happening today. So all those errors are frankly manually driven. If you adopt tech, those errors will go away. So that is an easier thing to do than to figure out what's happening under your social and your governance parameters. आप जितना मर्जी assurance कर लीजिए, we also know that assurance is not a very regulated market as per right now. So even when assurances come about, this SNG will always remain tough.
Right. So coming back to Vivek ji. Vivek ji, what is your understanding and what are your thoughts on the data reporting that is happening on these parameters?
Yeah. So in agreement with Aditi, just to add to what she's saying, one of the challenges we see both with big and small enterprises is data completeness, right? So there is, I think the fundamental challenge is really not the lack of technology or the availability of it. It's really the strategic intent, right? So when we talk to any business about why they want to be a sustainable company, you get different answers. Some people are doing it for fear of compliance penalties, that if they don't provide a BRSR or similar report, right? We actually do get clients where their invoices are held up in the EU because they've not disclosed their carbon footprint. So it's actual money that's not being transacted because of ESG reasons. Others are looking at some investment. So a smaller company looking for investment, actually even Indian banks now give preferential rates to ESG disclosed companies. So there is a lot of benefit to actually becoming green beyond compliance. And some others simply do it for market differentiation. Nobody in my field is doing it. If I do it, well, then I look better, I can attract customer loyalty and things like. So that's a great motivation as well, even in non-regulated markets. But the bigger challenge is behavioral. So alluding back to the challenge with data, like I said, the large part of data is in the supply chain. So if you have 95% data in the supply chain and you have a net zero goal of 2050, 2070 even as India does, how is that related to what is happening on the ground? There's zero correlation. One number sits in a PowerPoint deck, another number is fragmented across the global supply chain. They will never meet. It's foolish to think that you're going to get net zero unless you just simply lease out some rainforest in Brazil or you buy some offsets. It's not real. The only way it gets real is if you tackle the behavioral aspect of this, which is why do people not want to part with data? It's not that the technology is expensive. In our case, we gave away our dashboards and our technology, the IoT devices Aditi is talking about, we give them away for free to all suppliers who sign up, because we're looking at an ecosystem at a time. Right. Our revenues are volume based. It's not meaningful to charge 10,000 rupees for an IoT single meter, right? It amortizes itself in a month. It is useless to even charge for it. The problem is behavioral. If I'm using groundwater and I don't want people to know about it, I don't want the transparency. I don't want you to record the carbon emissions of that aspect. So a large part is behavioral, and coming back to the topic of this talk, which is beyond compliance, is there even a benefit for any business, right? I mean, fundamentally, even beyond or above environmental sustainability is economic sustainability. It's one of the large pillars, right? If a business is not viable, I cannot think about the environment. And then the other aspect is that there is a large capex. If you're going to put solar or wind or anything or recycle, well, there is some money involved, so the capex. So how do you do it intelligently, use alternate materials and etc. Without a capex, and do it in sort of an OPEX model?
Right. So understand completely. So we basically are talking that business should be sustainable first, and then there should be purpose, and then the ESG compliance and everything. But the topic of this discussion is how do you do ESG compliances that is beyond business, not only generating profit, but that with the purpose, right?
Absolutely.
So what is your, we are going to conclude this session with this, your short message on this part.
Yeah.
What is your thought on businesses driving these ESG related compliances, not just because of making their business profitable or generating revenue, but also adding the component of purpose into it?
Absolutely. So it's very, very valid. And we have to remember all businesses at the end of the day are a collection of human beings, right? It's mindsets that drive everything. And in the case of creating a carbon conscious or an ESG conscious culture, it has to come from the top. So if there's no strategic intent from the founders or from the CEOs or from the board of any company, nothing is going to happen. You can do these little ad hoc projects on the ground, but they will not add up to much unless there is strategic intent and purpose, and there is a real realization that if we have set out a net zero goal, for whatever reason, whether it's compliance driven or we're just passionate about the environment, unless you have the metrics to track it, it won't happen. So first is the mindset. I think if anything, the mindset has to be clear and has to be communicated right from the top.
Right. Aditi, your thoughts?
Yeah, I'll give you an example of an American client. And since Trump came about, we said that he's not going to remain our client anymore. But we spoke to them recently, and they said that we're very well on our path to be net zero by 2027. Well, it's a very large company in the US. And we said, but now you don't need to be. So they said, well, we don't care. We are doing it because we think it's the right thing to do. So just like he said, it's driven completely from the top. It's driven by their mindset of what they need to do to make things better. And trust me, this is a company, it's in a dirty sector. It's not in one of the clean sectors at all. So it is this mindset that will change ESG adoption. A lot of our clients are like that, actually. They're doing it only because it's the right thing to do.
Just correcting your thoughts, and again, the last question. Since you are saying that it is coming from the top, and at the international level, you are seeing those policies coming up, wherein, for example, we saw in America there was some limit on water that you
in California.
you will consume while having some activities. Right now, it has been made limitless. Right. So the message coming from top is that please don't means nothing to worry about those things. But this is very closely related to those environment initiatives, goals, and sustainability components that we talk about. How we are evolving, means how not only in India, at world level, how we are evolving towards with these thought processes coming in between.
So, America is very polarized. It's much easier to do it over there because there, if you're not a Republican, you're doing it. Probably to spite Trump, I don't know, but it's happening. So there it's pretty clear. The companies which are already on the path of decarbonization are staying there and they're not changing at all. I don't know about the other countries. And when we talk about the top may not be really the government push and the compliance push. We're talking about the leadership in companies who are equally powerful. We know that, right? So I think if
but the thought flows from there also, right?
Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it doesn't.
Your concluding thoughts, please.
Yeah, so I think the politics is by definition politics, and businesses are different. As we speak today, there are at least 16 Republican states in the US that have a net zero goal. And they're all Trump supporters. It doesn't matter. Again, why? Because their vote bank and their economies are tied to green activity. So the economics rules at the end of the day, unless you can tie environmental sustainability to economic sustainability, nothing will happen in a business or in a country. And of course, the glue is education. You have to educate and explain the why, even if it's not obvious. So I think politics and businesses are two different things. And at the end of the day, if the people want it and if they take ownership and they do it in their personal lives, it will extend to society and business. There's just no other way.
Thank you. Thank you for that. I think this was a wonderful discussion, very fruitful in terms of understanding the importance of data, transparency, technology, while industry goes on the buzzwords like ESG, while trying to be compliant regulatory in terms of those policies that are in place. So thank you so much for sharing your insights, and over to you, Ruchika.
Thanks to all these both the speakers and Ashish for your valuable insights and for helping us understand how profitably and purpose can go hand in hand. We now take a moment to extend our sincere gratitude and appreciation, and I would like to request Ms. Neha from M3M Foundation to come on the stage to do the honors.
A round of applause for our wonderful speakers here. Thank you.